as we wrap up this little 4-session tutorial on how to make good video with your mobile phone. We're going to end talking about editing. Well, we can't really teach anything about editing because there's so many different softwares, but what we're going to do is just give you an idea of what can be accomplished with editing. And of course, when we're talking about editing, we're talking about pre-recorded videos. So most of this stuff doesn't apply for Zoom. So for video editing software, there's 3 general areas. First of all is you can do it online. So if you log in, say on your computer, to some of these websites, there's a bunch of them, where you can just open their website, put your video clips and other media into their software, and then export it down offline into your device. The second one would be to edit on your computer. Now, you can get software that's from the real simple iMovie type, whatever Microsoft equivalent of that is, to things like the professional ones, Final Cut Pro, which is what, about $400, I think you pay for that. Premiere Pro, which is going to cost you every month, I think it ends up being like $1,200 a year or something. Just craziness. So I stopped using all of those. So the third one, and the one that I use, is to just edit right on my device. Okay, so in this case, in fact, all of the stuff that you've seen come out of my video productions in the last few years has been on my iPad. And I love it because it's simple. I can carry it with me. I often sit in my truck or my car or whatever and edit. I sit in a doctor's office waiting for my wife. She got her teeth done last month and I got a lot of editing done. It's just really handy to be able to carry this iPad around with you, especially if you got the pencil and you can just edit away. So on the iPad, I use software called LumaFusion. It was $29, I think. It's just an app you download, and it is powerful enough. In fact, the Fearless music video and all of the stuff for Summit, we produced all of that on this iPad on LumaFusion. And here's the kind of stuff you can do. I always tell our media students, if you can think it, you can do it. Well, that's true about anything, right? If you can think it, if you can dream it, if you can envision it, you can do it. And so how good do you want your media to be? And again, this is going to empower your ministry in a very special way. And it puts you a cut above so many other people who are too lazy and don't care. They don't think it's important to have good video. And I'm really proud of those of you that do believe it's good, and I've watched your stuff and it's really cool. So today, all I want to do is give you a few little ideas of things that can be done by editing your own video. So the first one is you put your clips on a timeline and they all work the same. And basically what video is a whole bunch of still pictures going really quick. So on our devices, usually we're shooting at 30 frames per second. That means there's 30 still pictures in 1 second, and that of course then goes on a timeline. And so as you hit play, then it begins to move through the timeline. It's moving through 30 of those frames every second. So everything relates to time, right? Where still photographs, it doesn't. It just relates to colors and light and that kind of stuff. So the time, because of the timeline thing, you can cut your video and cut things out. And this is a tremendous advantage that I use all the time. You know those little messages that I put out there about 7 to 8 minutes or whatever? They're usually about 15 minutes of video or sometimes 10 minutes of video. And I cut out all the ums and the ahs and the and then I stop and think and whatever that you can't cut out of live preaching, right? Or when you're doing Zoom. But on a video production, you can cut those out. And basically all you do is hit the scissors, cut out that little section, put it together, and you're off. And I find that a tremendous advantage. Not only does it help me come up with a better video, but it makes me remember that when I'm preaching, I should not be using words that don't mean anything, and I should be saying things concisely, effectively, quickly, clearly, right? So let's look at this clip right here, for example. So let's say I cut it. Now I've got 2 clips. So what I can do then is with the second clip, I can avoid the kind of a lurch, right? Like if you cut a piece of your video out, you're going to get you're going to jump, right? And so I can get rid of that by simply going to the size and position is what it calls it in LumaFusion. And I make the size bigger and I position it a little different. And now when I play through from one clip to the next, you see the jump there? It actually makes it look like or appear like it's a second camera. And you'll notice a lot of YouTube videos do that. The guy will just suddenly come a little closer, a little further away. That's the same clip. And they're doing that to make it look like a two-camera edit rather than just a mistake. The other thing that you can do is put still photos on. There's a still photo of my family there, right, that I showed you in the last video. And because video is a timeline, you put the still photo on the timeline and then you decide how long you want it to be. Okay, so you can make it longer or shorter. Another thing that you can do with still photographs, and again, because it's on a timeline, you can do this with video or photographs or music or whatever, is you can change it over time. So if I open up this clip into the editor and I put in, let's say I put it here at the proper size, proper 00 everything, okay? So what I can do is put a keyframe here, and keyframes, what they do is I set one here at the beginning of this clip, and it's going to play from there over time to 7.49 seconds, all right? And then what I can do is put another keyframe, and I can change the size there. So let's say I make it bigger like that. So I want people to see my beautiful granddaughter, Jubilee. We're going to focus on her. So what happens now is from this first keyframe, right, sized this way, to the last keyframe, sized like this, it'll play over time. So if I go back to my timeline and I play that, you'll see that it has a really nice, smooth zoom in.
Last week. Christmas in February.
Okay, because I've given it some instructions to perform over time, and those are called keyframes. And with keyframes, you can do a lot of things with different graphics and so on. And just anything that you want to change over time. You want a word to come in, you want something to wipe, you want something to dance, get bigger, you want to put a transition, a flash, whatever it is. That all happens over frames per second. And keyframes allows you to identify or clarify, like define how you want it to move. So those are really cool, worth learning about keyframes, really, really is, because you can use them in everything. Okay, the next thing that we've got to pay attention to with photographs, very important. Let me see if I can find a nice picture of somebody or something. All of my files are in here, and they're basically stored in the photo section of my iPad. So I can grab this one, and I can put it on the timeline. And there's a picture of somebody really cute that I took out for a date the other day. You'll notice this picture is really tall. Okay, I took it with my mobile phone standing up, right? So I got this really tall picture. So it extends beyond the edges of the video thing. So to make it fit inside there to see the whole picture, I'd have to pull it down like this. Okay, and then you got a space missing, and there's ways to fix that. I could fill it with black or whatever. But what you don't want to do, guys, is to stretch this out to make it feel or make it fill the entire frame. And now look what you got. You got a wife that hates you. Just saying. Okay? So don't do that. It's so distracting. The other really cool thing that timelines or video allows you to do is to add text, moving text that comes and goes. And you remember we talked before about putting scripture in, and I'll often leave a blank side here like this, right? So that you can put the scripture box here, or in this case I've got just text over here in a box, or a lot of times you put your subtitles or your name or whatever on the bottom. You'll do that with a graphic. Sometimes it moves. You'll notice a lot of my videos will have that. Like the Fearless documentary, it's got a lot of that kind of stuff where it's just sweet to have some motion in there. That's all done with text on timeline with keyframes.
Fear is an enemy that we can fight against and win. God has not given us a spirit of fear.
So you can get creative there and do all kinds of neat things. Also, you can put your logo. There is the Victory Asia logo or part of it. So I can put this down on my timeline. And I made this logo in Affinity Photo. And so you can put it like a logo or whatever on there. Okay, so I'll put the Victory text on there as well. You just size it and position it where you want. And there you have it. I've got our logo. I want this one in front, so I move it up here. And now the Asia is in front of the Victory. If you have trouble with any of this stuff and you want to do some of this stuff, just shoot me a message in Messenger, because I'm really happy to help you. In fact, I'm happy to even do some of this stuff for you if you struggle with it and you need help. I'd like to see you have these things. In fact, if you want the Victory Asia logo, I'll send it to you, right? Those kind of things is really what makes you move up to a pro level. Did we talk about color correction? No, that's one thing that's amazing on these things. You can open up a clip over here, and this program, you can add a way to color it. Okay, so if I don't color it, it looks like this. Once I color it, it looks like this. And basically, all you're doing is you're adjusting, in a sense, getting rid of some of the red here, moving the contrast up a bit, moving the saturation down a bit, go through all those kind of things, check the yellow-blue relationship, and make it so that it looks as pleasing as possible, which is also a big advantage when you're using two cameras. If I'm using my mobile phone and one of these Canon cameras, the color comes through and the light comes through very different. So I can adjust the brightness, try to make them match, adjust the colors to try and make them match so that they look consistent. There's a place down here called transitions, and I go into here and I pull a transition onto there, and now this one is a flash. So it's going to just go from this picture, flash, into that picture. Don't get carried away with transitions, okay? They'll spin and they'll loop and they'll do all of these crazy things, zooming in and zooming out. The best transition is actually a fade from one to the other or a straight cut. Use straight cut most of the time. Now, the next cool thing about video is the audio part of it. We talked about audio and how to record good audio, but there's 6 video tracks in this software where I can put 6 different things on top of other different pictures, different video, different text. And on the bottom, there's 6 audio tracks, so I can add music, I can add a sound effects, I can add whatever. Plus, you can go into the clip, like any other clip, and you can set the gain, right? Set the volume. There's a graphic equalizer, so if there's a bad noise or something, I can pull that out of there. And you don't want to overdo that as well, because it'll make it sound funny. But there's just all of these tools, and this is a $29 video editing software. Let me just say about music. Now, you add a music track, and you notice that a lot of the stuff that we do will have a music track, especially when there's an intro or an extra or something like that. Be really careful about music. You can't use music that belongs to somebody else. Okay, if you put a worship song in your track or some other music in your track, YouTube will flag that video. And in fact, if you're streaming online, it'll actually shut you down because you're not licensed to use that music. So be very careful about that. YouTube has a database, a big database of free songs and sound effects that you can use. You can just Google it and look it up. I don't know how to find it real quickly, but you can use all those. Some of them you have to read the licensing details. You may have to give credit to the author, right? The guy who wrote the song or whatever. But you just put those in the description of your YouTube video, and then you're clear to go. You can use it, and you won't get flagged. Another really important thing about audio, when you're adding audio to your video, be very subtle. If you're using sound effects, make them very quiet so that you don't actually really notice them, but they help add to the feeling of the thing. And so particularly with music beds, okay, music bed is music that plays in the background while you're talking. So tempting to put that in there. It sounds so nice. But the problem is that your ear will hear your voice and think that the music bed isn't too loud when it really is too loud, because somebody that's listening can't get past the music. So I usually put it on very, very quiet. In fact, usually what I'll do is if I start with a music bed, I'll fade it out to nothing slowly so that nobody even notices that it disappeared. All right, so happy video editing. And let me just end with this. What you give attention and focus to is what will produce for you in your ministry. And the more things that you can give attention and focus to you, and this is probably a good definition of a leader, is somebody that gives attention and focus not only to just the right things, but to all the right things. So, for example, back in the day, my wife and I were the worship team for Thailand. We came from Canada with our guitars and our PA system, you know. And because we gave a focus to that, we have victory worship today. It really helps the creative process when the leader knows what can be accomplished and really encourages people to accomplish it. And not only that, but sometimes people come along and say, that can't be done. We had this huge tree at the back of the Victory Tower. I asked the maintenance guy, I said, could you guys take that down? They tried and they said, no, it can't be done. They called the city and had the city come with a big picker truck, you know, basket up there, hydraulics and saws and everything. And the city gave up and said, no, it can't be done. I said, you guys stand back, watch me take it down. Me and one of the other boys went up there with a chainsaw, and we spent 2 weeks up there and brought that tree 6 stories high, brought it down to nothing, and it's still gone today. So you've got to have that attitude as a leader, that you're willing to learn and willing to do the things that nobody else is willing to do. When we didn't have an accountant, I had to do the accounting for the ministry by myself. I had a friend in Bangkok who was an accountant. I spent about 2 or 3 hours with him. He explained debit and credit and balance sheets to me. I wrote some stuff down, came home, learned how to use Excel in my computer, and built the whole financial system, the accounting system for the ministry. And now when somebody, you know, some accountant comes and says, you know, that can't be done, I say, yeah, stand back and watch me. I know what can be done. You can't fool me, right? And so many times you get people in the ministry who are part of the team, and they come home with the wrong answer, that can't be done. Right now I'm trying to get my vehicles, Jeeps, relicensed. Oh, that can't be done. Stand back and watch me. It can be done. And in fact, next time you're going to do it. And because you can't allow people to take no for an answer. We can learn this stuff. We can get good at all of this stuff. Whatever we honor, whatever we put focus on, whatever we put energy and put importance on, will come back to be effective and powerful in the ministry. And you know that we've spent a lot of attention on media and produced television shows for years and all of the media stuff. And I'll tell you what, it's been such a powerful blessing. Not only just the idea of we can do good media, but the people that it attracts. There's a lot of people that would love to do the things that you do if they see you doing things excellently and things that they aspire to do, and they'll join you. A lot of kids come to this Bible college because of the media, because of the worship, because we ride elephants, whatever it takes, man. So keep in mind those two things. Whatever you give a focus to and attention to becomes powerful in your ministry. And the other thing is, whatever you learn to do, which is the same thing, becomes something that you cannot be fooled about. You know what can be done, what can't be done, and you can give leadership in those areas. So I just want to say happy leadership in all of the areas that are necessary and advantageous for your ministry to move you forward and plant churches across Asia.